Today I'll show you the solution of the cast Enigma puzzle. This is a puzzle I have for more than 10 years, but for me personally it took 6 years to fully solve it for the first time. And it took me 5 more years to understand what I did there and why it worked. So if you clicked because you want to understand how to solve the Enigma puzzle, what we're gonna do here is break down the solution of the Enigma, which is very complex, explain the pieces, and I try to give this away as steps so you don't have to see the whole video, but you can watch it step by step and try to really understand what's going on because it's super cool. And if you don't have the Enigma puzzle, you will really enjoy the mechanisms and the unique movements of this piece. It's super special, it has 3 pieces, and you know that the goal is to take it apart and put it back together. What's up, puzzle gang? Welcome back. The Enigma puzzle is a level 6 Hanayama, which means a level 10 out of 10 puzzle. Not simple at all, and it's very difficult to understand. I myself am pretty average on disentanglement puzzles, so that's why it took me 6 years to solve, I guess. And I hope that thanks to this video, your puzzle won't be thrown away in some box, rotting and waiting for some savior to come and put it back together. So enjoy this, take it step by step. Feel free to stop whenever you feel like you have enough information to try and do this yourself. And also there's a new Puzzle Gang Discord I opened for people who watch my channel. So some of the people who are there are Puzzling Time, Team Librock, Puzzle Guys there already, Sudo is there, and some more cool people that are already inside. So feel free to join and let's show you how to solve step by step the Enigma puzzle by Hanayama. So we know the goal is to disassemble and reassemble the puzzle. But for a long time I didn't understand where do I need to put it back to and what's the beginning position. So first let's understand why and what is the beginning position. We have 3 different pieces. One of them is this piece. It has 2 notches here. This is the second piece, which has this rail, and the first piece can slide on the rail thanks to the notches. And then we have the long piece, the nose piece. It has 1 notch that can slide on the rail and a very long hand. The puzzle is considered assembled when the tails of these 2 pieces are inside the hole. So you have this hole on the long piece, 1 tail is inside, and you have a hole on the second piece, which we can call the snail piece, and another tail is inside. But then also the last thing that needs to happen is that this first piece, let's call it the big piece. So the big piece has to have this triangular hole in it. Can you see this? It has this normal worm-like hole, and this triangular looks kind of like a spinner type of hole. So this hole has to be on the tail of the long piece and between the holes of the snail piece and the tail piece. I know this can look really confusing, but once you understand the beginning position really well, you can start working your way towards the solution and towards assembly. And it's really tricky. So now let's begin the step-by-step solution. It took a few hours this weekend to really understand how to solve it and what I'm doing and to explain everything. So this is what I found most efficient to explain, and this is how it would be really easy for you to understand, hopefully, what you are doing. So the first thing you're gonna do is to take this piece here. You have to rotate it between this hole, and you are taking this notch and putting it right inside this rail. This here is step 1. Now the second step here is using the features of the long piece. You can actually widen or broaden the hole that you make with this piece and the place it takes by rotating it. So for example, this piece needs to go on top of this now, but to make this happen I will have to rotate this piece all the way. But now I'm able to take this big piece and put it through the tail of the spiral piece and through the hole of the long piece. Now the next step would be to take the inner notch of the big piece and pull it through the rail. Now that I've done this, I'll take the long piece and pull it through the rail as well. At this point, what I have to do is to swap between these and this pieces, and this piece will serve as a hindrance actually, but I do need to understand, and you guys need to understand, that from here on you don't need the rail until you switch between these two. Now to switch them, you will take this piece all the way here, and this one will rotate like that. After I've done this, I'm gonna take the long nosy piece and put the spinner inside the hole of the long piece, and then I'm gonna rotate the long piece just like that. And as you can see, this is a bit tricky to do every single time. This is probably the hardest part of the puzzle for me. While rotating this piece, I can move the big piece all the way here to this part of the hole of the spiral piece. And guys, feel free to look at this again as many times as you need. It really is pretty tricky, but I'm trying to do this as clear as possible and not to overthink it. So after I did the rotation with that piece, I'm gonna take this one here all the way here, and you can see that from the spinner hole, only the furthest part of the spinner is held by the spiral piece, while the long piece's hole is held in the most extreme part of the hole, the most far away place it can be from this piece. Why? Because now this is the place where I have to extract this piece from the big piece. And now I have the tail of the long piece, and I can pass it through the spinner hole of the big piece. It has to be perfectly configured, and you need to use a little bit of force sometimes, and it goes through. Now this is where it becomes really easy compared to before. I'm gonna take this piece and pass the middle notch in the rail. From here I'm gonna pull it through the tail of the spiral piece, and then I'm gonna rotate it and pull the notch of the big piece through the rail as well. Now we've got this piece disassembled. In the disassembly process, there's a big mistake that I did that cost me hours of more time to solve it, and I'll explain it in a bit, so pay attention to that. Next up, I'm gonna take this piece, and now this one here, I can pull it back here, but this won't help me solve the puzzle. Instead, what I have to do is to make it go out in a different way. I'm gonna take it from the other side, which I couldn't do before, and pass the tail of this piece on top of the tail of the spiral. Also needs a little bit of force sometimes. From here, I'm gonna rotate this again, pass it through the rail again, and here I can take it off. Now the puzzle is disassembled, but here I made a really big mistake when solving this puzzle, and this is where you need to pay attention. And maybe you still have a chance to solve this puzzle. If you like disassemble it and you don't want to spoil the solution, you can stop watching here and look how I disassembled the puzzle. Because when you assemble the puzzle, there's actually a few traps you can go to which will make the puzzle impossible to solve. You can call them dead ends as well. The biggest dead end that I experienced, and I wasted a lot of time on it, is actually this one. I don't know if you noticed, but when I took this part off the spiral, I took it this way from the bottom, and then I put it on the top. But one time, and this actually happened to me this weekend as well, when I thought that I know how to solve the puzzle, I took this piece and I put it backwards so the hole is facing up, and this made me waste hours of my precious time and try to solve it incorrectly. So pay attention how you put this back together, and what I found really useful is to use this piece as a guide, as like my plateau. This is the floor level. Every time when I solve this puzzle, I am looking at this part like this as my level 0 floor level, and I use this as a reference to understand what's going on at any given minute. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with this puzzle, that you can look at the different pieces, and if you focus on another piece that you don't need to focus on at the same moment, you will get lost and waste a lot of more hours not understanding where are you now. So this is very important to notice, and pay attention that throughout the whole solution I actually held this way, and I really recommend that you guys do this way as well. So now I'm gonna do it backwards. I'm gonna take this piece, put it inside. Notice how it's really important to also put it in the correct direction. If I put it from the other direction, I won't be able to solve the puzzle. So it's really important to put it the way it went down. And then I'm gonna do the same I did before. So bam, pass it through. And good. So this is the correct position. This is how you know that you put this piece back right. When you hold the spiral piece this way, you will see that the long piece will go inside it from top through the bottom and come back from top. This is how you know you did it correctly. But to put the other piece, this tail piece, long one, has to be on the side. You don't need this now. What you're gonna do is to take this piece, and instead of putting it upside down like this, which is incorrect, I'm gonna look at the spinner hole, and look at this tail. It's really important that this notch goes along the tail inside the rail while the spinner is facing down. This is so important, and if you don't do this right, you will get stuck. So really important, spinner facing down, notch going through the rail just like that. Then you're gonna rotate it and pass the spinner through the tail of the spiral as well. And you have this notch here, the inner notch, and you're gonna put it inside just like that. Now from here, I'm gonna take the big piece and put it on the extreme side of the hole while having the long piece on the other side of the hole. And then I'm gonna take the tail of the long piece and insert it inside the spinner hole, just like that. I'm gonna take the big piece, put it on the side, and help the long piece pass through the hole by rotating it, just like that. And then I'm gonna take the big spinner hole and pass it through the long piece, just like that. And now I have the long piece and the big piece in different positions than before. Before I did this, the big piece was closer to the tail of the spiral. Why? Because now, actually, if you look at the spiral, it goes to this path, and let's say this is the tail of the path, and you can go all the way until you're here in the end. So I actually swapped between these two pieces inside, and this piece stayed in the same place. And this is so important to notice, how this piece is always in the same place. Everything I do revolves around manipulating the other two pieces, and that's how it's so actually easier, I think, to explain and understand. The next thing I'm gonna do is to pass the notch of the long piece through the rail again, and then I will remind you that this piece is in the correct place, but the only thing that's left to do is to take the big piece and make it stick inside the long piece and have the spinner-like hole held by the long tail piece here between the holes. It's actually a bit difficult to explain, but I hope that you guys understood. The reason why this puzzle is not solved yet is because this piece is held by the spiral piece, while it needs to be held by the long tail from here with this hole. And actually, if you try to put it throughout this hole, I don't think it's possible to have this hole held by this piece. Anyway, what I'm gonna do here is to make this big piece pass again through the rail, and make sure you don't pass it mistakenly through this hole again. You don't want to do that. You're gonna pass it through the rail, and then here's the tricky part. This long piece needs to be used to pass the triangular spinner hole throughout the tail of the spiral piece. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna do it real slowly. I'm rotating the tail, and this helps me make this easier to pass for the triangle. See how this now is really manageable to pass through. This is thanks to rotating the tail piece. Bam, now this is impossible to enter, but if I do it like this, now this hole is really manageable and I can pass it through just like that. And from here we have only one more move. Notice how this spinner hole is already held almost by the tail. The last thing we have to do is to take the notch, the outer notch, this one, and pass it through the rail, just like that. We will need to use this piece again, the long piece, and rotate it to have more space for the big piece to pass, just like this. And now we have enough space to pass this piece through the rail, and the puzzle is back to the beginning position where the big piece is held by this tail. The spiral's tail is going through the hole of the long piece, and the long piece's tail is going through the hole of the spiral. And this is the solved position. And if you enjoyed this puzzle video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one next. It's gonna blow your mind.